Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. And those of you in Futureland, thank you so much for stopping by and checking out this video. Uh, so let's get right to it. I had just had an idea. I have an idea. It was something I've been just kind of thinking about, but I was watching Uneducated Economist, and I really appreciate his content on a level that of him breaking down the economy, how it works. And once you understand how it works, then you're more informed. And once you're more informed, you can move accordingly. And he does a brilliant job of really giving you in bite-sized pieces to where you can understand it and wrap your arms around it, and in a non-complicated way like you might see on, MSNBC or whatever, these big outlets and these guys that are talking, and really giving you the 10,000 foot view. I think Simon does a really good job of breaking it down piece by piece and then applying like what that means for you and how you should think about it. Not in a sense telling you what to do, but in the sense he does a good job of framing it like, this is what's happening. So, move accordingly, basically. So he was talking about how, which is the title of this video, how a good job sucks. And I got to thinking about that in my own life, and I got to think about that in my friends and stuff like that. And everyone's a professional, been in the career for a while. Everyone's making, really decent money by most standards. I would say maybe it used to be good money. Maybe it's not so much anymore. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment and share on this video. I appreciate everyone, and I don't take that lightly whatsoever. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. So I was thinking about it, and if you have graduated college, maybe you didn't go to college, like myself, I didn't go to college, but whatever, you're in your career, you're working, you're making good money, but you have more month left at the end of the month than you have money. I think everyone's kind of feeling that in some way or another, and things are not getting cheaper, as we know, and things are not gonna get any cheaper. So he was really explaining well, and I'm gonna do my best here to try and explain it. But essentially, there is no fixing this economy. There's no fixing where we're at in the stage of our, I don't know what you would call it, country or whatever. And then anyone who tells you, yes, I'm going to fix it, it'll all be okay, it's right, it's just a lie. And that's not a Democrat thing, it's not a Republican thing. There is no fix. Are there things that could be done to reduce spending and, shore up the budget? Absolutely. Like, I think everyone can universally agree on that. But in terms of it going back to the glory days, I based on what I've learned, I don't see that happening. And here's why. The economy is at it's at a point to where basically, in order for us we've become consumers and spenders, right? Where we used to be manufacturers and savers. And Simon, the Uneducated Economist, does a really good job of pointing out like the theory of what do you call it? The theory of oh man, I forget the exact name of it. It'll come to me in just a second. But anyways, he does a good job of outlining and explaining like, because we're in a global economy, everything is tied together, and there's really not much that can be done because other countries like India, for example, can, if they were to design this shirt and stitch this shirt, well, if you were to have that done in the US, this shirt would probably cost a lot of money, right? Cheaper. And then you have someone in, India who can produce the same thing, same quality, for a fraction of the cost. You see? So there's really no way to compete with that on a global scale. And then when you look at things and that's across the board, right? If someone can produce something for cheaper, well, companies are going to go work with that person or that entity to produce the whatever goods for a fraction of the cost, because why? You could keep your profits up. That's across the board. I mean, we do that in grocery stores, right? Whereas if you buy a product and you see the product next to it that may be an off-brand but maybe just as good quality wise, you save a couple bucks, you'll probably go that direction, right? As long as there's, no crazy ingredient or anything like that. But generally, that's what consumers do. We look for the deal. We bargain shop. Well, it's the same thing that these companies are doing, right? They're not going to say, where can I spend the the highest cost to develop this shirt and stuff. It's just not how it works. You have to go where you can get cheap labor. And right now you can get cheap labor in other countries. The US, we've reached a point to where we've let our lifestyle kind of creep up in such a way that now, in order to have a livable wage, you got to pay through the roof, which then results in a higher goods, right? It costs more to produce. That's why if iPhones, they always use that as an example, if iPhones were made here, you'd be paying a lot more money than what you already pay. And just think about that for a second. Like, how many of us are in a position to do that when you have, 70% of Americans aren't prepared for a $400 emergency? Do you think then that we're going to turn around and spend more money on goods and services? I don't think so. It's not how it works, right? And so when you understand that, then I believe, like, uneducated economist Simon, that you at least can equip yourself and move forward with the information you know. Guys, it's not getting better. And this is not like a doom and gloom thing. This is like, no, you just have to do more now. Whereas before you didn't have to do as much, right? When maybe our parents were growing up and maybe they could just get a job and you work that job and you move your way up in the company, you stay with that company for 30 years. But we all know that company loyalty is at an all-time low on both ends, on the employer end with all these massive layoffs that you're seeing, and it's on the employee end too, right? Everyone's looking for an opportunity to make more money, which is, I can understand both sides, right? It's not a wrong or right thing. So with all that in mind, what do you do? Well, the only thing you can do at this point, even if you have a good job, you have to find ways to generate more income. And it's really simple when you think about it, because like I've said in previous videos, there's only 3 ways you can make money. For obvious, you got real estate, right? I consider real estate channel because that's just what I do. Real estate, which is proven over 2,000 years old. And then you have business. You can start a business, right, of some kind. And then you got the stock market. Those are the only 3 ways that you could really make money. And you always hear people, oh, you got to have multiple streams of income and stuff and so forth. Yeah, that's a great idea. You should. And, but it takes a while to build that up, right? That's why I encourage you to focus on one thing, master it to some degree, right? And then once that's going and can support itself for its own, then think about jumping into something else. The last thing you want to do is put too many irons on the fire at one time and not be able to, move forward. So stick with one thing, get good at it, learn the ins and outs, and be nuanced and be an expert in that thing. Then once that's gone, you can now focus on something else. So I don't know. I just want to encourage you guys out there to say, like, look, we're all in the same boat together. There's no sense in complaining. At this point, we all know what the deal is, so we have to move and act accordingly, right? Keep our expenses low. Don't be it sounds weird saying don't be a consumer, because you need to consume in order to, like, function, right? some of us. Maybe you're special to where you don't have to, but for the most part, try not to elevate your lifestyle. The lifestyle creep, right? To where you start making more money, maybe you start adding more subscriptions, maybe you start doing this or that, or, you know, really count your beans, as they say. Like, really hone in and get really focused on your line item by line item in your budget. And if you don't have one, well, then you got some work to do to even get to that point. But it's gonna take some time. Be patient with yourself and try and think about, you know, things that you can invest in that you aren't necessarily having to work for, because you got to get out of trading time for money. That's what it was. Critical threat is what he talks about. The critical threat theory, meaning that whether it be the president, whether it be, you know, the Chairman Powell, to where they're talking about the economy, whatever they say and how they say it and the tone they deliver it, they can like dictate how the market reacts. So, you know, if Trump's tariffs, well, guess what? The market will react. It's the idea that they can speak it into existence, essentially. Like, it's kind of weird, but I encourage you guys to go look up his video. I think he did a phenomenal job. But having a good job, let me just say this, even though the title of this video is Having a Good Job Sucks, we all need to have a job, right? Unless you're an entrepreneur and you got it and you're at that point to where you don't need a job, or I should say a 9-to-5, fine, good for you. But for those of us who do, like myself, look, I work. I'm a guy on YouTube making videos, but I still have a 9-to-5. You know, at some point we'll see. But right now I still do, because I'm building. When you're in your building phase, you gotta keep food on the table and keep the lights on, right? That's the goal. And then when your other ventures can support your lifestyle, then you can transition out of that W-2 role. But at any rate, I encourage you guys to invest, figure out ways to make money, pay off debt, all the usual suspects. You don't need me preaching to you. Everyone knows at this point what you should be doing. This is more of like, you're not alone. It's a real thing, and it's not anything that, you know, you did or you didn't do. It's just where we're at in this economy and where we're at in the cycle of things. And I really encourage you guys to go research the critical threat theory. Very interesting. Good work, Simon. And hopefully you guys will have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.